MLB The Show has been a cornerstone of sports gaming for a bit over a decade now. Its Diamond Dynasty mode was once celebrated as a game changer in card collection and team building gameplay, but as the years passed, this shining diamond began to lose its luster. Today, we'll dive into the rise and fall of Diamond Dynasty, exploring its evolution, challenges, and legacy year by year. Before we get started, I do want to say this video did take a good minute to research and put together, so if you could, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to help push this video out to the masses. Diamond Dynasty made its debut in MLB The Show 12. It introduced players to an innovative new way to experience baseball gaming. At its core, the mode allowed players to collect cards, build custom teams, and compete online, blending traditional sports gameplay with strategic team building. While the concept was groundbreaking for its time, especially in the world of baseball, the execution was limited by the technology available and the developer's first attempt at such an ambitious project. Customization options such as creating basic logos and uniforms, they were there, but they really weren't with how basic they were. Card acquisition was slow and felt overly reliant on randomness, leaving many players frustrated with the grind required to progress. The online component of Diamond Dynasty was exciting and problematic at the same time. Competing against other players in real time was a new feature that added depth and replayability to the mode. However, server issues frequently disrupted matches, with lag and disconnections being common occurrences, and something that we honestly still even see today, but we'll talk about that later. These technical flaws made it challenging for players to fully enjoy the competitive aspect of the mode, but despite these issues, the promise of an evolving online experience kept players intrigued and engaged as they could see the potential for the mode to grow. Overall, MLB The Show 12's Diamond Dynasty was a bold first step that laid the groundwork for one of the franchise's most beloved modes. While the execution was far from perfect and needed a lot of work, the developers' willingness to experiment and take risks ensured that Diamond Dynasty had a solid foundation to build upon. Despite its technical flaws and limited features due to the time it was released, the mode's core ideas was compelling enough to leave a lasting impression and set the stage for dramatic growth and improvements within its future. MLB The Show 13 marked a year of refinement for Diamond Dynasty as the mode began to solidify its place within the franchise. Developers focused on addressing key community concerns and enhancing the overall experience. Card acquisition became more accessible, providing players with clearer paths to earn rewards. This change made the mode more inviting for casual players while retaining enough depth to engage dedicated fans. By striking this balance, MLB The Show 13 began to establish Diamond Dynasty as a mode with broad appeal. The user interface received significant upgrades, streamlining team management and navigation. Players can now sort through their collections more efficiently, making it easier to build and optimize lineups. These quality of life improvements, while small, had a notable impact on the gameplay experience. The simplified interface reduced the time spent on administrative tasks and allowed players to focus on the gameplay, making the mode more intuitive and enjoyable. One of the most exciting additions in MLB The Show 13 was the debut of Legends, which brought a nostalgic element to Diamond Dynasty. While the Legends roster was pretty minimal in the initial iteration, it laid the groundwork for future expansions that would feature more iconic players. Another highlight was the introduction of themed challenges, which gave players unique objectives to complete in exchange for rewards specific to a player or team. These challenges added variety to the gameplay and encouraged players to experiment with different strategies, offering a fresh layer of engagement. Online gameplay in MLB The Show 13 was still pretty bad, with barely any improvement whatsoever. However, while these issues persisted, the community still did appreciate the developers' visible efforts to enhance the online experience. Overall, MLB The Show 13 was a year of thoughtful refinement for Diamond Dynasty. Though it didn't introduce any groundbreaking features outside of Legends, it addressed many of the shortcomings to the previous year and added exciting elements. These changes made the mode a bit more accessible and engaging, setting the stage for a more ambitious and innovation in future installments. MLB The Show 13 did dedicate the developers' dedication to evolve Diamond Dynasty into a cornerstone of its franchise. MLB The Show 14 made significant strides in expanding and refining the Diamond Dynasty experience, introducing several new features that set the stage for the mode's evolution. One of the most notable additions was online events, limited-time competitions that provided unique challenges and exclusive rewards. Now, it is worth noting that the events that we see today are not the same events as online events at this time. These events added a dynamic and competitive element, encouraging players to return frequently and stay engaged. The rotating nature of these events kept the gameplay fresh and exciting, making them a highlight of this installment. The card pool expanded significantly in MLB The Show 14, giving players more options for team building and strategy. The legends, first introduced in MLB The Show 13, were further developed with additional iconic players joining the roster. This growing lineup offered a nostalgic appeal for fans while enriching gameplay diversity. Players appreciated the expanded roster, which allowed them to create a lineup that blended historical greats with modern stars, fostering creativity and experimentation in team composition. Visual and gameplay improvements played a key role in enhancing the overall experience. The game featured more polished graphics and smoother gameplay animations, making each match feel more lifelike and immersive. Additionally, new customization options enable players to personalize their teams more deeply, from designing uniforms to creating logos. These enhancements not only added to the mode's aesthetic appeal, but also gave players a greater sense of ownership over their creations, deepening their connection to the game. Despite these advancements, online connectivity remained a recurring issue in MLB The Show 14. Server stability was inconsistent, with disconnections and lag frequently disrupting gameplay, particularly during online events and competitive matches. These technical problems were a source of frustration, detracting from the enjoyment of otherwise innovative features. For many players, the server issues highlighted the significant area in need of improvement as the mode continued to grow. In the end, MLB The Show 14 showcased the potential of Diamond Dynasty to become a premier mode in sports gaming. The introduction of online events, an expanded Legends roster, and improved customization options elevated the experience and kept players engaged. While online connectivity issues persisted, the developers' commitment to the innovation was evident. The installment laid a strong foundation for future growth, solidifying Diamond Dynasty as a key feature of the franchise. By MLB The Show 15, Diamond Dynasty had begun to hit its stride as a centerpiece of the franchise. The developers doubled down on features introduced in previous years, refining them and adding new layers of depth. Advanced team management tools were a standout improvement, giving players more control over their rosters and strategies. These updates streamlined the experience, making the mode feel polished, user-friendly, and increasingly engaging for new and returning players. The Legends roster expanded significantly in MLB The Show 15, introducing even more iconic players to the lineup. This edition continued to captivate fans, offering a blend of historical and modern players that enriched the mode's appeal. The variety of cards also increased, allowing players to experiment with different team-building strategies. This diversity provided both competitive and casual players with ample opportunities to tailor their lineups to their preferences, further enhancing the mode's strategic depth. One of the most praised changes in MLB The Show 15 was the improved reward system, which made earning rewards through gameplay more consistent and reduced reliance on microtransactions. Now, I will say, in MLB The Show 15, and at that time, microtransactions were not a heavy emphasis, so that could have also possibly been a reason. Players can now progress more naturally, creating a more rewarding and player-friendly experience. This shift was widely applauded by the community as it aligned with players' expectations for fairness and accessibility, helping to solidify Diamond Dynasty as a mode that rewarded time and skill. However, online connectivity issues continue to hold back the mode. While there were minor improvements in server stability, lag and disconnections during peak hours remained a recurring problem. These issues frustrated players eager for seamless competitive experience and undercut the progress made in other areas. If you want an example of this, Troyden has an infamous video that'll be shown right now.
Grab that, grab that. Are you kidding me? Are you fuck?
And he'll reach first safely.
Don't. Why are you grabbing the ball, boy? He took it second. What the fuck is your problem? What is? Kill that kid. He's stealing fucking home. He's stealing home. He went to.
Despite the strides made in gameplay and rewards, the lingering server problems were a consistent pain point for the player base. Overall, MLB The Show 15 marked a standout year for Diamond Dynasty, building on successes of previous installments while addressing some key shortcomings. The introduction of advanced team management tools, an expanded Legends roster, and a more balanced reward system elevated the mode to new heights. Despite ongoing server issues, MLB The Show 15 firmly established Diamond Dynasty as the cornerstone of the franchise, with a growing and dedicated player base that recognizes potential for both fun and competitive depth. MLB The Show 16 marked a turning point for Diamond Dynasty, introducing several features that significantly deepened and restructured the mode. Daily missions and programs became key additions, giving players clear objectives to complete for rewards. This shift made progression feel a bit more goal-oriented and less grind-heavy compared to earlier games, offering casual and hardcore players alike a more balanced and accessible experience. The result was a renewed sense of accomplishment that kept players engaged throughout the year. The game also debuted Battle Royale, a new draft-based competitive mode that quickly became a fan favorite. Players assembled teams from a pool of cards in a short strategic draft and then competed in a high-stakes elimination format. Battle Royale's shorter game lengths and intense structure introduced a fresh layer of excitement to Diamond Dynasty, catering to players looking for competitive play without committing to full-length games. It added variety and became a cornerstone of the mode celebrated for its accessibility, fast-paced action, and competitiveness. The Legends roster expanded dramatically, bringing in historic players like Jackie Robinson. This broadened roster allowed players to build lineups that blended baseball's past and present, enhancing both gameplay variety and emotional connection fans felt with their teams. Alongside this, visual and gameplay improvements elevated the experience. Smoother animations, more detailed stadiums, and a polished presentation added to the immersion, while a revamped user interface made team management and navigation more intuitive for both new and returning players. However, persistent online connection issues remained a glaring problem. Lag, disconnections, and server instability frequently disrupted competitive modes like online play and Battle Royale, frustrating players during critical matches. These technical flaws often overshadowed the otherwise strong improvements, especially for those invested in the competitive aspects of Diamond Dynasty. Despite the technical shortcomings, MLB The Show 16 set a new benchmark for the series. Daily missions, programs, and the introduction of Battle Royale brought fresh structure, variety, and intensity to Diamond Dynasty. Unfortunately, the gameplay was not great either. There were issues with hitting being consistent. However, the expanded Legends roster and gameplay refinement further enriched the mode, solidifying it as a centerpiece of the franchise at that time. While online connectivity continued to be a stumbling block, the innovations of MLB The Show 16 established a strong foundation for the next game. MLB The Show 17 marked a pivotal moment for Diamond Dynasty with the introduction of Ranked Seasons, a structured, tier-based competitive ladder. That's right, before this, there was no dedicated mode for online play. It was just simply head-to-head, but there were no dedicated missions or rewards specific to head-to-head play in the sense of a 9-inning game. This mode allowed players to climb through ranks and earn exclusive rewards, fostering an atmosphere of prestige and high stakes. Ranked Seasons quickly became a cornerstone of the Diamond Dynasty experience, solidifying the mode's reputation as skill-driven and providing competitive players the clear avenue for showcasing their abilities. Events also made their debut in Diamond Dynasty, adding a fresh, time-limited challenge-based format to the mix. Events featured specific lineup restrictions or themes, such as player-handedness, team affiliations, or ratings that encourage players to experiment with different strategies and team compositions. These rotating challenges provided new ways to earn rewards, kept gameplay dynamic, and catered to both casual and competitive players looking for variety outside of the grind-heavy modes. The game delivered notable visual and gameplay improvements, enhancing immersion and realism. Refined lighting, smoother animations, and detailed stadium designs elevated the presentation, making each match feel a bit more lifelike. These upgrades complemented the deepening content of Diamond Dynasty, creating an experience that felt polished and engaging for players of all levels. However, the grind-heavy nature of programs and missions for acquiring powerful cards drew mixed reactions. Competitive players often appreciated the complexity and effort required to unlock these rewards, but casual fans found the time commitment discouraging. This growing divide between hardcore and casual players became a recurring issue, with some feeling the game increasingly catered to those with more time to invest, rather than providing a balanced experience for all audiences. Connectivity issues were another significant point of frustration. Server instability and lag frequently disrupted ranked seasons and event matches, particularly during peak hours. These technical flaws undermined the competitive integrity of the mode, turning what should have been high-stakes, skill-driven matches into frustrating experiences. Players widely criticized the persistent connectivity problems, highlighting them as a major obstacle to the mode's success, despite innovative design. Ultimately, MLB The Show 17 laid a strong foundation for the future of Diamond Dynasty. The introduction of ranked seasons and events expanded the competitive and casual appeal of the mode, while visual and gameplay improvements elevated the overall experience. MLB The Show 17 was a bit of a fan favorite, and despite persistent technical issues and grind-heavy nature of some content, MLB The Show 17 demonstrated the franchise's commitment to innovation and provided the template for future growth. MLB The Show 18 doubled down on challenging content, introducing the controversial Immortals program. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't even want to talk about this game. This game was so bad that it's a miracle that they were able to actually come back from this, quite honestly. But anyway, back to the Immortals. These ultra-powerful cards required players to complete an exhaustive set of missions and acquire rare items. While Immortals symbolize ultimate achievement, the grind-heavy requirements alienated casual players, sparking frustration and widespread criticisms. Another contentious decision was the removal of universal rewards because for some reason they thought that was a good idea. And in earlier versions of the game, progress in other game modes contributed to Diamond Dynasty rewards, allowing players to engage with various aspects of MLB The Show while still feeling accomplished. In contrast, MLB The Show 18 forced players to focus almost exclusively on Diamond Dynasty, alienating fans who enjoyed variety in their gameplay experience. This shift highlighted the perceived prioritization of hardcore players at the expense of casual gamers. As always, server stability issues added to the community frustrations, frequent reports of lag and disconnections during competitive events such as ranked seasons, and program challenges disrupted gameplay. These technical issues turned what should have been an exciting opportunity to earn rewards into stressful experiences as players feared losing progress due to these server errors. The situation spoiled the competitive integrity of Diamond Dynasty and contributed to an already negative reputation of the game. Let's not forget the hitting engine issues that came with MLB The Show 18, most commonly having inconsistent outcomes or having a well-timed swing with perfect or good contact, often resulting in weak hits or outs, while poorly timed swings occasionally produced hits. Of course, we still see this to some extent today, but in MLB The Show 2018, it felt impossible to actually hit a home run. MLB The Show 18 also tried to emulate real-life emphasis on launch angles and exit velocities. However, the game often overcompensated what was happening, and it would lead to situations where fly balls were dominating gameplay, even though they weren't the most logical thing that was happening based on that type of swing. Overall, if you played MLB The Show 22, it felt like that, but a hell of a lot worse, and quite honestly, the game just didn't feel polished in its hitting, and it was just a really inconsistent experience. The lack of accessibility and technical challenges led many to view MLB The Show 18 as a low point for Diamond Dynasty, and by the way, it was. While the core gameplay mechanics weren't great, the overwhelming emphasis on grinding and a narrowed focus on one game mode alienated a significant portion of the fan base. The game's content structure in MLB The Show 18 failed to strike a balance between challenge and inclusivity and ended up becoming one of the worst MLB The Shows we've ever seen. MLB The Show 19 responded to criticism of its predecessor by embracing simplicity and accessibility. Developers scaled back the grind-heavy nature of previous years, introducing more streamlined progression systems. Programs became more rewarding for players of all skill levels, ensuring that casual and competitive players alike could enjoy meaningful progress. Fans widely praised these adjustments as a shift toward a more player-first design philosophy, which rekindled enthusiasm for the franchise and the mode. A standout feature of MLB The Show 19 was the introduction of Moments, a mode that allowed players to relive iconic MLB events through narrative-driven challenges. By combining gameplay with historical storytelling, Moments added depth and engagement to the Diamond Dynasty progression system. This innovation quickly became a favorite, offering both an enjoyable experience and a practical path to earning rewards. It marked a significant step forward in making the game accessible to a wider audience. The Legends pool also saw considerable growth in MLB The Show 19, adding more nostalgia and variety to the player pool. New and returning Legends gave players the freedom to experiment with team competitions, fostering creativity and strategic depth in Diamond Dynasty. These additions resonated strongly with fans who appreciated the balance between historical reverence and gameplay diversity. Server stability showed improvements compared to previous years, though it was not without flaws. Competitive modes like ranked seasons experienced fewer disruptions, but occasional lag and disconnections persisted. While the technical improvements were notable, the lingering issues reminded players that there was still work to be done to ensure a seamless online experience. Overall, MLB The Show 19 is widely regarded as a year of redemption for the franchise, and honestly is probably one of the best games that they have made to this point, and is a fan favorite. The simplified systems, expanded Legends roster, and introduction of Moments re-engaged the community and signaled a bit more inclusivity for the series. However, repetitive content and residual technical challenges highlighted areas for continued growth, leaving players hopeful for further refinements in future installations. MLB The Show 20 is honestly going to be one of those games of a what-if type of scenario. In my opinion, MLB The Show 20 was actually the best game that they have made up to this point, and honestly overall. However, the pandemic did kind of make a bit of a change to that, and they kind of had to draw an audible and say, well, how are we going to create content? But overall, I think the gameplay for MLB The Show 20 was probably the best we've seen. But with MLB The Show 20 launching amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, it drew an influx of new and returning players of Diamond Dynasty. One of the most notable additions was Showdown mode, where players drafted teams to complete AI-based missions and face high-stakes final challenges. While the Showdown was praised for its strategic depth and innovative design, its punishing difficulty spikes frustrated some players, particularly casual gamers. This mix of admiration and criticism reflected the game's ongoing struggle to balance accessibility and challenge. Frequent content updates played a crucial role in keeping the expanded player base engaged. Team affinity programs, new events, and themed content drops offer consistent rewards, providing players with fresh objectives throughout the year. However, as the game progressed, concerns about repetitiveness emerged, considering we were in the middle of a damn pandemic. Many programs followed similar structures, which led some players to feel the gameplay loop lacked variety and innovation, despite the steady flow of new content. But honestly, like I said, it's a pandemic. We understand that there was only so much that they were able to do. The expanded Legends roster remained a highlight for many fans, delivering nostalgia and variety to Diamond Dynasty. However, criticisms arose at the lack of diversity in high-tier cards. The meta heavily favored certain players, creating a competitive imbalance where many teams featured identical lineups. This lack of variety in team composition diminished the strategic creativity that Diamond Dynasty was known for, particularly in high-level play. As the player base grew, server stability became a critical issue. Lag and disconnections were frequent during major events and competitive modes like ranked seasons, leading to widespread frustration. For some players, the technical issues were significant enough to prompt them to avoid competitive modes altogether. These persistent problems highlighted the challenges of scaling the game's infrastructure to meet increased demand. Despite these challenges, MLB The Show 20 maintained a strong player base through its consistent content updates and the introduction of Showdown mode. However, the reliance on grind-heavy mechanics, repetitive content structures, and ongoing technical flaws began to take a toll on the community's patience. While the game did succeed in retaining its audience during unprecedented times, it also signaled the need for greater innovation and stability in future games. MLB The Show 21 marked a pivotal moment in the series, with the introduction of the game being released on Xbox and eventually Nintendo Switch, and having the introduction of crossplay, enabling players on all platforms to play against each other. The innovation significantly expanded the game's community, fostering broader engagement and competition. However, it also exposed weaknesses in the server infrastructure as always. Disconnections and lag during peak times became frequent complaints, dampening the excitement around this groundbreaking feature and highlighting the challenges of scaling to meet the demands of a larger, more diverse player base. The addition of parallel cards introduced a new layer of customization and progression to Diamond Dynasty. This feature allowed players to upgrade their favorite players by earning in-game experience, adding depth and personalization to lineup building. While the concept was well received, the grind required to achieve higher card tiers drew a lot of criticism. Many players felt that the rewards often didn't justify the time investment, particularly for casual gamers, creating a gap in the accessibility. Frequent content updates continued to be a hallmark of the series, with new programs and events arriving consistently throughout the year. However, fan reception was mixed, as many of these programs relied on familiar structures seen in prior installments. The lack of substantial innovation of the core gameplay loop felt some players feeling fatigued. Additionally, the introduction of new game modes is limited, contributing to the perception that the game's evolution had stalled in terms of creativity. However, on top of that, the content in MLB The Show 21 is widely regarded as one of the best games that we've seen in terms of content. There are so many different cards from that game that we still think are like the best cards that have ever been released, something like Trey Turner, Edward Cabrera, Jacob deGrom's. The sinker was really powerful in that, the pitching was really powerful, and the game, honestly, even though it had some issues, was just a lot of fun. Although fun, the excitement around cross-platform play was further diminished by server instability, which became a recurring issue throughout the game's lifecycle, with many people saying, turn off your crossplay, the game plays better. Competitive players, particularly those involved in ranked seasons and tournaments, were vocal about the impact of technical problems on their experience. Lag, disconnection, and other server-related challenges undermined the competitive integrity of the game and left players questioning the reliability of the cross-platform infrastructure. While MLB The Show 21 was an ambitious step forward for the franchise, it struggled to fully deliver on its potential. The introduction of cross-platform play was a major milestone that expanded the community, but persistent technical flaws and repetitive content structure dampened the overall experience. Fans appreciated the efforts to innovate and did think that this was a fun game, but the execution underscored the need for meaningful changes and a focus on the stability to fully realize the series' evolving vision. Now for MLB The Show 22. Now, if you followed me for a minute, you know that MLB The Show 22 is the first MLB The Show game that I streamed, started creating content for. And although I did play a lot of the older games, this is the first time that I really kind of got into the ins and outs of the game and really understood how everything truly works. Now, unfortunately, MLB The Show 22 is probably one of the worst games that they have made, especially since coming to Xbox and Nintendo Switch, but we'll get into that right now. MLB The Show 22 sought to refine existing systems, but the lack of significant new features left fans underwhelmed. While parallel cards returned with improved functionality, the removal of the Team Affinity program, a fan-favorite feature, sparked disappointment. Players felt that the absence of these programs left a gap in the content structure, making the game feel less rewarding and less dynamic compared to previous games. Hitting mechanics became a major focus of player frustration in MLB The Show 22. While the game aimed to balance skill-based outcomes and realistic gameplay, inconsistencies in the hitting engine drew widespread criticism. Perfect swings often resulted in outs, while poorly timed swings produced inexplicable hits. These issues undermined competitive integrity and made high-stakes matches feel arbitrary, frustrating players who relied on precise hitting for success. And this is honestly one of these situations where, you kind of see it a little bit today still, where, you have that little pop-up that somehow lands, and this happened several times an inning, several times a game. Server reliability remained a significant issue, with frequent disconnections, freezes, and crashes during major events persisting throughout the year. Xbox players were particularly affected, as sudden crashes often resulted in automatic losses, which was not fixed until November, which exacerbated frustrations and created a worse experience than in previous years. These technical flaws, combined with unresolved hitting consistencies, turned many players away from competitive modes like ranked seasons and Battle Royale. The game's Legends roster continued to be a highlight, offering nostalgic players access to some of the baseball's greatest icons. However, complaints about a repetitive meta resurfaced, with dominant cards monopolizing competitive play. This led to predictable team compositions and gameplay strategies in high-stakes matches, reducing variety and creativity. The over-reliance on a small pool of viable cards highlighted the need for a more balanced roster diversity. Ultimately, MLB The Show delivered an unpolished, uninspired experience. While new features like a more refined moments and challenges catered to casual audiences, they felt more like minor iterations than meaningful innovations. The absence of team affinity, ongoing hitting inconsistencies, and server issues left fans feeling fatigued and eager for more ambitious updates. Without substantial new content or gameplay improvements, the game struggled to reignite excitement within its community, and the game died a lot faster than previous games. MLB The Show introduced significant changes to Diamond Dynasty, with features like theme teams, sets, and seasons, alongside the groundbreaking Negro League Storylines mode. Sets and seasons created a rotating card system to keep fresh lineups and ensure ongoing variety in gameplay. While some players appreciated the strategy of building competitive teams within each season's constraints, others felt that the frequent rotations devalued their hard-earned rewards. This system drew mixed reactions, especially from players who struggled to keep up with the pace of the updates. The debut of Negro League Storylines was a standout addition, offering a heartfelt tribute to the history and legacy of the Negro Leagues. This mode combined narrative depth with gameplay, allowing players to learn about iconic figures like Satchel Paige and Jackie Robinson through historically rich challenges. Many praised the educational and engaging nature of this mode, and honestly told a lot of great stories in a great way to fans that may not know about these players. I know for me, I was in my 20s when this game came out, and quite honestly, I didn't hear about a lot of these players, and the players that I did know about, I didn't know about the stories that they had, and Bob Kendrick and the Negro League Baseball Museum told great stories and a great media to actually get these players in national attention. Because of this, the Legends roster continued to grow, furthering expanding the pool of historical players available in Diamond Dynasty. However, new additions were frequently overshadowed by, again, meta-dominant cards, which continued to define competitive play. The rotation system introduced by Sets and Seasons attempted to address this imbalance by limiting which cards could be used in certain seasons, but many players still felt restricted by the prevalence of a few overpowered options. The lack of variety and viable strategies frustrated those seeking more creative gameplay. Server performance showed some improvement compared to previous years, but technical issues persisted during critical matches in modes like ranked seasons and major tournaments. Disconnections and lag, while less frequent, continue to undermine some of the competitive experience, especially given the added pressure of adapting to Sets and Seasons. These flaws remained a sore point for players invested in high-stakes play, as they detracted from the overall stability of online gameplay. Ultimately, MLB The Show reflected both progress and stagnation within the franchise. The addition of sets and seasons, theme teams, and the Negro League storylines brought fresh concepts to Diamond Dynasty, but the reliance on grind-heavy mechanics and competitive imbalance left parts of the community feeling fatigued. While some applauded the innovation and steady content updates, others called for a more comprehensive reimagining of the game's structure to address accessibility, balance, and long-term engagement. Fan reception remained divided, highlighting the need for more ambitious updates in the future. MLB The Show 24 sought to keep Diamond Dynasty engaging with the introduction of dynamic seasons, a rotating system for rewards and challenges. However, this is just sets and seasons. It was just reskinned. Many players felt that sets and seasons undermined the mode by frequently rendering cards obsolete, forcing players into a constant grind to stay competitive. The design alienated dedicated players who valued long-term progression and saw their hard-earned rewards lose relevance within months. It was also a lot more strict than it was in MLB The Show 23. In MLB The Show 23, you could use 2 seasons of players at a time, where for this year, in MLB The Show 24, you could only use 1 season of player at a time. So, for example, if you're a casual player and you spend 2.5 months grinding for your perfect team, you could wake up a week later and you can't use any of those players anymore unless you have wildcard slots. Now, a lot of players felt like this wasn't fair. They felt it was a waste of time. And honestly, if you look at the player base, you look at the Twitch numbers and all that kind of stuff, after that first season reset, people didn't care about this game. And especially with the game coming out along the lines of NCAA in the summer and stuff like that, people just didn't care about the game after that first reset because they didn't feel like their time was valued while they were playing. Cross-generation play, though, did ensure that players across console generations could compete together, maintaining accessibility. However, as always, server reliability continued to be a major pain point. Disconnections and lag during critical matches dampened enthusiasm for high-stakes play. For many, these technical issues, combined with frustrations of sets and seasons, created a perfect storm of dissatisfaction with the competitive experience, and overall stopped playing the game altogether. The lack of changes to ranked seasons further fueled player discontent. The format remained largely unchanged, leading to fatigue among some longtime fans who sought meaningful updates to the competitive structure. With the dominance of meta cards and the cyclical nature of sets and seasons, ranked seasons felt increasingly repetitive and stale. Players noted that the mode rewarded grinding and adherence to the meta rather than skill or creativity, amplifying frustrations with the overall direction of Diamond Dynasty. Even the continually expanding Legends roster, which introduced more historic players than ever, couldn't offset the discontent surrounding the core gameplay systems. While these additions brought nostalgia and variety, the reliance on a few overpowered meta cards did overshadow a lot of the new options, and quite honestly, those new options could have been better as well. Combined with the forced card rotation of sets and season or dynamic seasons, players felt constrained in their lineup choices, leading to predictable and monotonous gameplay in both casual and competitive settings. Similar to MLB The Show 23, MLB The Show 24 also had a problem with its theme team cards in terms of overall balance. Instead of having a lot of captains for its theme teams be really promising and really good, it really didn't have that. There were probably a handful, anywhere from like 3 to 5 cards that were worth actually running on your team unless you're running a specific theme team. Now, in my opinion, since they have shown that they really can't balance it, I think that this game would be better off without that in the game until they can go back to the drawing board and find something that wouldn't be so broken. MLB The Show 24, though, epitomized the growing tension between refinement and stagnation within Diamond Dynasty. While dynamic seasons and steady content updates aimed to inject freshness, the ongoing reliance on sets and seasons left much of the community frustrated. For many, these systems were seen as detrimental, prioritizing short-term engagement over long-term satisfaction. Despite its polished presentation, MLB The Show 24 struggled to reignite excitement, leaving players questioning whether the franchise could address these systematic issues and deliver meaningful innovation in the future. Diamond Dynasty has been a journey of innovation, ambition, and growing pains. Over the years, it transformed from a groundbreaking addition at MLB The Show 12 into a franchise-defining mode, evolving with features like Battle Royale, ranked seasons, and the inclusion of historic legends. But along the way, challenges like server instability, grind-heavy mechanics, and controversial systems like sets and seasons often alienated parts of the player base. Despite these hurdles, MLB The Show remains a cornerstone of sports gaming, continually adapting to meet the demands of its community. With the announcement that MLB The Show 25 will not include sets and seasons, it appears the franchise is ready to pivot once again, taking a step toward restoring the long-term progression and accessibility that players have long cherished. As we look forward, the legacy of Diamond Dynasty will likely continue to evolve. While the past few years have been missteps, they've also showcased a commitment to experimentation and growth. Fans now await the next chapter, hopeful that the future of MLB The Show can strike a balance between innovation and inclusivity, ensuring Diamond Dynasty remains a mode beloved by all players of all skill levels for years to come.